We bring you now the curious case of Marcus Morris. That's right, NBA player Marcus Morris. Now, last we heard, Morris rejected a deal he had agreed to go eat Tex-Mex in San Antonio and hang out at the Riverwalk. Had agreed to a 2-year contract for $20 million to take the Spurs offer. Well, he rejected that at the last minute. After verbally agreeing to the contract, he then decided to renege on that and said, hey, wait a minute. I would like to go to the New York Knickerbockers. So he went to the Knicks. He got a 1-year deal for $15 million. Now, in the aftermath, we've learned that he fired Marcus Morris, his agent, Rich Paul, the notorious Rich Paul. They said it was a mutual parting of the ways. You might have seen that if you pay attention to this kind of stuff. And now, as the iconic radio broadcaster Paul Harvey would say, you know what the news is, but you're going to hear the rest of the story. So the rest of the story on this. We are told that Morris and the people around him, they became incensed because of the agent. Now, why were they upset with Rich Paul? Clearly enough to fire him. Well, the whispers in hushed tones indicate the reason that they were upset, Marcus Morris and some of his family people were upset, was because Rich Paul rejected a much bigger offer from the Los Angeles Clippers. And he could have played for the Clippers. So if you didn't hear about this, if you missed it, Marcus Morris was offered a $41 million deal by the Clippers. Now, he agreed to a $20 million contract with the Spurs on the council of Rich Paul and then ended up going to the Knicks. But the offer from the Clippers reported $41 million. He would have been teamed with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. It didn't happen. And instead, he'll be playing with Barrett and Julius Randle with the Knicks, and he'll be losing a bunch of games and likely be traded midseason to a different NBA team. Now, connecting the dots backwards, the Internet investigative arm has determined that the reason that Marcus Morris didn't sign with the Clippers is not because he didn't want to play in L.A., and he didn't think the $41 million was worth his time, but this was the underhanded work of LeBron James' henchmen. And we'll give you the evidence. I want to talk about this. Now, the question, what are the odds? Now, that's the reporting that Rich Paul was involved in this and either did not give all the facts of the $41 million offer to Marcus Morris, some even going as far to say he completely did not bring it up at all. But what are the odds that Rich Paul actually did meddle to help protect LeBron James and the Lakers? Well, I think they're pretty good. I think the odds are, I would put the odds out at minus 570, which implies an 85% chance of some dishonesty, some unscrupulous behavior by Rich Paul and in part with LeBron James. Now, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence. There's not a lot of direct evidence, but there's a lot of circumstantial evidence. So we'll give you that. Now, my take, you've got the Golden Goose, Scooby-Doo, and Cautionary. And we will line all of these things up, and we'll go at it here. Now, to lead off with, on the surface, I completely understand why someone with a critical mindset, someone that uses critical thinking, would say it is silly to even propose such silliness, right? It's so absurd to say that Rich Paul cost himself a percentage of that $41 million. What person outside of some kind of deep-seated psychosis would decide, I'm going to take a $20 million contract rather than a $41 million contract when you only get a small percentage of that? Like, why would Rich Paul do that to hurt himself financially? Okay. Well, dig a little deeper. Stay with me. All right, you dig a little deeper. Rich Paul is what? He is a glorified sock puppet for King James. And so he has a vested interest in protecting the Golden Goose. The Golden Goose plays for the Lakers. Short-term pain for long-term gain, right? Rich Paul is a creation of Frankenstein's factory run by LeBron James. He is a nobody, Rich Paul, who became a somebody riding LeBron James' coattails. He is a loyal servant, And in this relationship, you owe your entire existence as a baller financially, all the mansions, all the sports cars and all that. You owe all of that to LeBron James. You've done none of it. You've earned none of it. You're worthless. LeBron James is the one that, I could have been LeBron James' agent and made that money. So it is more probable than not that if you look at the circumstantial evidence, that Rich Paul kept things on the DL, on the down low. Likely figured that Morris would get to $20 million in San Antonio. He would then get another deal later, and he would make the money back later, so it didn't really matter. Clearly not looking out for the best interest of his client, in this case Morris, but instead in the best interest of his boss, LeBron James. Are you following along? We're connecting the dots backwards. Now, furthermore, this notorious actor, Rich Paul, he almost pulled off one of the great malpractices of sports agency. And now the story's gotten out. Now we know why Marcus Morris, we believe why he fired Rich Paul, if this is accurate. But what went wrong? I learned this as a kid watching Scooby-Doo. As a young kid, I used to watch this cartoon called Scooby-Doo. And Rich Paul would have gotten away with it if it weren't for you pesky kids, right? In this case, somebody got back to Marcus Morris, got his ear, and let him know through back channels and through other surrogates that he had a $41 million offer from the Clippers that he rejected. You talk about meddling in a player's affair. I mean, I don't think it gets much more egregious than that. Now, LeBron James is the shadow owner of Klutch Sports, the agency that Rich Paul is quasi-running. And we know that Rich Paul likes to think of himself as the real general manager or the assistant GM of the Lakers. He travels around on the team plane. He hangs out at the practice facility. And the Lakers are so pathetic and so desperate, they let him have a run on the place. So Marcus Morris, he's 29 years old. And this is a guy back in his days with the Celtics that had given LeBron James some problems defensively. So it would make sense that if you're Rich Paul, you do not want this guy playing for the Clippers because they're in the same building as the Lakers, and the Clippers already are better than the Lakers. The Lakers are at a disadvantage talent-wise. They are the ugly redheaded stepchild compared to the Clippers with all these rejects they signed to fill out their roster, injured and broken and flawed players. And so you want to give the Clippers another player like Marcus Morris? So instead, Rich Paul steered him away from the Clippers, and voila, ends up finally got exposed and was fired by Morris. Now, the last thing on this. So we go back to Rich Paul's reputation, which precedes him. And the story with Marcus Morris is really a cautionary tale. There are hundreds of agents. Maybe not that. Maybe there's 100 agents working in the NBA. There's not many players in the NBA. They said there's 100 agents, maybe more than that. But if you do business with Klutch Sports, buyer beware. Do not expect the most ethical business practices. Now, agents in general have a bad reputation. I've told you some of my stories over the years about agents and how I got screwed over and all that. It happens to the best of them and the worst of them. But you are a foil. When you work for Klutch Sports, you are a foil for LeBron James' side hustle, which is this sports agency. There is a pattern that is developing of Rich Paul clients who have not maximized the amount of revenue they can make because of making compromises for LeBron James. Marcus Morris, now he didn't even know about it apparently, but he left $21 million on the table because of what is believed to be some shady activity by Rich Paul. How about Anthony Davis, who had a $4 million check coming his way after being traded from New Orleans to the Lakers, but I'm going to reject the $4 million. Who does that? Right? I mean, I know it's a parlor game, but who does that? These moves were both made to help out LeBron James. Marcus Morris not going into the Clippers helps out LeBron James, makes it a little bit easier for the Lakers, not having to go against Marcus Morris 4 times a year. And Anthony Davis not taking the $4 million from the Lakers helps out LeBron James. They were able to sign some more broken down players like Danny Green and some of these other guys. So there you go. It's the perfect storm.